This is La Palabra by Cuban vanguardia painter Marcelo Pogolotti in 1934. This is an oil on canvas painting, and the first thing I notice about this work is that it's primarily a labor scene. We see some working men in the background working with this large machinery. To the left, we see a man hard at work carrying these large sacks. We can't see exactly what kind of factory this is, and we only have this vague machinery and either raw materials or finished product in these sacks here. We know the sugar industry was very significant in Cuba at the time of this painting, so perhaps this is a sugar manufacturing plant. Besides these workers, there are a lot of other interesting things happening in this scene. In the center, we see these intimidating soldiers supervising the workers. We see a couple of figures walking around with their hands out, and it kind of looks like they're wearing blindfolds. Up on our left, there's this man in a suit and top hat, and it's hard to say if this is a portrait of him in a frame or if he's actually here standing in a doorway, maybe. But either way, he's watching and he's looking over everything happening here in this scene. And because of how nicely he's dressed and the fact that he might be a painted portrait, I want to guess that this is the factory owner or otherwise some wealthy entrepreneur. We see two men in top hats wrestling with a worker, potentially doing the bidding of the wealthy owner based on their similar dress. It appears that this other soldier or policeman with a baton is going to help them subdue this worker. So we do see just from formal qualities that there's a sort of class dynamic at play, a sense of inequality. However, I really get the sense from the fact that Pogolotti decided to include a portrait of Vladimir Lenin, a founding revolutionary of the USSR, talking to a group of workers right here. His likeness resembles this very famous picture of Lenin addressing a crowd, which has been used in other political artworks, like this statue in Belarus kind of looks inspired by this, and many posters from the USSR. So in the midst of the backbreaking labor, the military presence and violence, the blindfolded workers, perhaps blind to their own oppression, the distinguished factory owner, and Lenin, the socialist leader, addressing workers, Pogolotti perhaps reflects upon a growing class consciousness in Cuba. Maybe he feels a heightened sense of tension among the working class and the ruling class, who at this time and historically is exploiting the workers. Conversely, Pogolotti might express a desire for that consciousness. Perhaps he, like Lenin, is trying to rouse the workers to break their chains. Pogolotti spent several years of the 1920s and 30s in Europe, taking influence from artists such as Fernand Léger, and most significantly, the Italian Futurist movement. Though not all futurists initially ascribed to the same political beliefs, Pogolotti separated himself from the movement after prominent and founding futurists like Filippo Marinetti had associated themselves with fascism. In his departure from futurism, Pogolotti disavowed fascism and anything to do with it, but he retained certain aesthetic qualities of the movement, as well as an interest in urban and industrial scenes. Though Pogolotti really found his roots in futurism during his many years in Europe, we can't take him simply as an imitator of European styles. Pogolotti, like other vanguardia painters, introduced a new aesthetic language synthesized from a variety of European originating styles, but freed from their conventions, filtered through their most fundamental Cuban experiences, and interpreted in the context of Cuban life and politics. In a similar sense, Pogolotti and other vanguardia artists also took inspiration from Mexican social realism. We can point to the murals of Diego Rivera to make aesthetic comparisons and also draw similarities among their political interests and positions. Pogolotti did not believe that his art should appeal to foreign audiences who craved images of an exotic, leisurely Cuba. He refers specifically to Victor Manuel's Tropical Gypsy as a work that might do this by presenting the mixed race Guajira as an image representing Cuba, appealing to that Western taste for passive, exotic femininity in the style of Paul Gauguin. Instead, he aimed to reveal the violent reality of Cuba's working class under President Gerardo Machado, a reality that did not change much even after Machado's deposition. Pogolotti believed it was vital that artists expose the material conditions of the working class, specifically citing the soldier supervision, intimidation, and violence in labor settings, and he reveals such a reality in La Palabra. So there you have it, Pogolotti's La Palabra, a symbolically loaded example of the Vanguardia's aesthetic roots in European modernism and politically charged interpretations of Cuban social issues and cultural life.